obviously steel. But I didn't realize that concrete was that needy of energy in order to make. I mean, it looks so simple, you know, when you stir it together. Anyway, next. And this is a steel factory called Zug Island that's just south of Detroit. And again, super high intensity use of energy. And we know that here in Cleveland area because we have one in downtown Cleveland as well. But you can see the coal here, the iron ore, the limestone. These are the crucial ingredients. And in the background, even though it looks like stripes or something, those are coal cars, or cars, railroad cars that are carrying materials in. And it is truly an island. I tried to get into it, you know, to see if I could take some photographs before I went aerial. And the car looked at me and he said, "You're not getting over this bridge, believe me." So I was lucky to be able to take this photograph. Anyway, next, please. And just actually in the city limits of Detroit is this enormous refinery. And again, huge amount of energy is used to make the gasoline for our cars and trucks. I'll just tell you an anecdote of how I got this photograph. It's actually on I-90, or I-75, I guess, is the road that goes from Toledo up to Detroit. And it's an interstate, very busy, and I saw it. It was sort of November-ish, and I was making a tour of the lake, and I drove past it, and it just looks so dramatic in this kind of late afternoon, warm light, and I realized it wouldn't look that way again for another year when the same warm light was on it, but also it was cold enough for me to be able to see all these billowings of air that only occur, you only see them when it's really cold. So a year later, I convinced a friend of mine who had a little Fiat of taking me to this spot, and we were going to make a very fast stop. I was going to put up my tripod, take a couple pictures, jump back in the car, and we were going to take off. And that's what we did. I was a little worried about being run over by these trucks that were going past, or being arrested. And she said, "Oh, don't worry about being arrested. The police aren't on this highway. They're all chasing murderers somewhere." So, and she was right. We didn't get caught. But this is really, I think some of my pictures that I really worked hard to get are more loved probably than others that were easy. But anyway, to me this is a dramatic, picture of the way we are using energy in this country. Next. And by comparison, Ontario, at least the Ontario that is part of the lake, has that coast, is very rural. And so this is Ontario here, and we're looking out, and that's the coal burning power plant in Michigan that we saw earlier. And then there's the Henri Fermi nuclear power plant across the way. In Canada, just these ugly weeds. But I met somebody from Canada. She said, "Well, we have a lot of industry. It's just not on this lake. I mean, Lake Erie." And it turns out that there is only one river that goes into Lake Erie, coming down from the north. And historically, there was only one easy ford as a result. And you think of how many rivers are just going into the lake from Ohio. I think there are 10 from Ohio alone. And so we've had the sort of luxury of having lots of places to, you know, have ports and industry, and so I'm sure that's one of the reasons why this is the case. Next. It also struck me that particularly Ontario is very involved with renewable energy, and the laws are different there. So to some extent, it seems like the premier can decide certain things, and even if the people oppose it, they become law. So this is an example of where we get a lot of our tomatoes during the winter, near Leamington, Ontario, and about half of these have huge solar arrays to keep them warm. Next. And this is an example of a wind farm that has 5,000 wind turbines. And the power that's generated by these turbines is enough that the government was able to shut down the largest coal-burning power plant in the northern hemisphere. So, I mean, 5,000 windmills can really produce a lot of power. But I was on the ground and talking to people about how they felt about the wind turbines, and a lot of them really didn't like them. They, you know, they had the same problems that we'd had with neighbors really not wanting a wind turbine in their backyard, and it was just a fait accompli in Ontario, where it wouldn't have been, or it can't be here. Next. And the other thing is that Ontario and New York share some of the energy that is produced by Niagara Falls. And later in my talk, I think I left a picture of this in one of the piles, and it talks about how many homes are illuminated and get their energy because of this. I mean, it's clean energy, and it's also a great tourist destination. Next. Here I'm flying through Buffalo, heading basically west, and you'll notice some sticks there on the coastline, and those are a group of, I think it's something like 15 wind turbines, and they were installed right on the coast in a slag heap that was left behind by Bethlehem Steel when it closed. And it was useless land because nobody would want to build on a toxic waste slag heap. But it was ideal for putting wind turbines up. Next. So I made it, since I was trying to, you know, track this energy profile, I think it was on the coldest day of the winter of 2015-16, I drove to Buffalo, and I had relatively warm clothes on, but I wasn't really prepared for the wind chill, and when I added things up, I think the wind chill was like minus 20. I went up there to take this picture, and I was so addled by it that I didn't use a slow shutter speed to show the movement wind turbines, which were going like mad like this. Anyway, I do feel that it has that really whole feeling about it. And I also was able to get a different position than I could have to take the wind turbines because I was actually out on the ice of the lake. Next. Another, success story is clearly, what's happened to the Cuyahoga River. And even though this was taken on